Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. Glad to have you with us here today. Just Jim, the father, along with a guest. I think, Spencer, you have the award now for the most common guest on our show.
Oh, do I?
I don't think we've had anyone on as many times as you yet. So, no
Awesome.
Zach today, but we're in good hands. We've got our good friend Spencer from the Fantasy Files podcast. I feel like you don't even need an introduction anymore, Spencer, but
Yeah.
still, there might be new people because our channel's been blowing up lately. Just in the last month, we've added almost 150 new subscribers, which is kind of cool, but some of them might not know you yet.
Sure.
So tell them who you are and where they can find stuff that you do.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Spencer from the Fantasy Files podcast. I'm here today with my trusty beast, Hank.
Hank! Love me some Hank.
He's the best. But yeah, my best friend Gabe and I, we started a podcast about three and a half years ago, where we kind of do the same thing that Jim and his son do. We talk about fantasy and sci-fi and all sorts of other books. We read horror sometimes, and it just kind of depends what we're in the mood for. And we do author interviews. We talk to other YouTubers and booktubers and podcasters, and we talk about like creating content and whatnot. And yeah, we do a bunch of other stuff. We talk about video games sometimes. Sometimes we go and just do like off-topic episodes. But yeah, we have a ton of fun. We have a couple more co-hosts now. We have Chris and Mick, who have joined us in recent years. And so, yeah, it's kind of a whole family over there now.
There you go.
But if you're at all interested, you can find us primarily on YouTube. We don't have a ton of stuff on Spotify, although that is a goal for 2024. I'm just gonna hire somebody to get all our stuff over onto Spotify. I'm just gonna pay them to download all our stuff and move it over there because I just don't have time for it. But yeah, you can find us on YouTube, Fantasy Files Podcast. You can find us on Twitter, at Files Fantasy is our handle over there. And we also have a Patreon if you'd like to check that out. It's linked in our Twitter bio and in the description for all our videos, and you can get exclusive content over there.
So if you enjoy Spencer here today, I definitely recommend you check out their channel. I'm one of their subscribers. They cover a lot of the same things we do, but with their own spin, their own approach. You'll also see me on some other episodes because I guest over theirs too. You know, we have so much in common. It's a lot of fun. And that's why we do all this. Yeah. And if you viewers have fun today, be sure to tell us by clicking that like button down below. Tell YouTube, yes, this is great. Spread the word. And of course, we hope you'll subscribe. Join the many that already have been doing that recently. Look down in the show notes for other ways you can connect with Zach and I on social media and our Discord server especially. But also we do have a Patreon. And today I want to give a shout out to our newest patron, Brittany. Thank you for joining at the Feist tier. So, you know, you're part of the crowd now that gets all our content early and the other special benefits. Thank you for being here. Brittany's been binging through our content today, and I've been getting so many comments, and it's been lots of fun to have someone finding some of the older stuff now, because like you, Spencer, we've been doing this for about 3.5 years, so there's a lot of back content out there now.
That's such a good feeling, and it's always funny when you get one of those comments on one of your really old videos, because they'll mention something, they'll like reply to something you specifically said in the video. It's like, I don't even know what I said or if I even hold the same opinion about it anymore.
Right. Oh, that's so fun. It really is. And that's what we are here about today. Fun. Because we read books for the fun of it, for the entertainment value, for sometimes the deeper things. I know you love a book, Spencer, when it hits you in the feels and makes you cry, you know, all of that. But the emotions, the feelings, the vicarious escape of literature. So some months back, I was hanging out with you. We did an episode talking about different books we might challenge each other to read. And long story short, this was the book that you wanted me to read.
Yes.
And it was already on my TBR, but much further down. I don't know when I would have got to it, but I raised it up and I read it promptly on your recommendation. You have recommended and pointed me to a number of things that I've enjoyed over the last couple of years, and that's been fantastic. This one, I wasn't so sure as I got into it. Warning for everybody who's watching this, this is a full spoil episode. So while we're not going to do a book review necessarily, we're going to talk about whatever we feel like talking about for Thomas Howard Riley's We Break Immortals. So if you have not read it, you shouldn't be here. And I will say at this point, I'd recommend you read the book.
Yeah. And also, Jim
hate grimdark. Don't read it if you don't like grimdark.
Yeah. I would say that's fair. I don't know if I would necessarily classify it as grimdark compared to the other stuff I've read, but it, like, Thomas Howard Riley classifies it as rated R epic fantasy. And
definitely adult epic fantasy.
So go into it knowing that there's going to be a lot of swearing. There's going to be a lot of
do not give this to your 12-year-old saying, "Oh, you're mature, you can handle this." No.
Yeah, there will be very like open discussions about sex and stuff like that. So just be aware of that.
Plus, honestly, some of the most graphic kills I have seen in anything I've read. Very creative.
Oh, man, yeah.
I mean, I think of I'm trying to think. There's some movies I've seen where like people just randomly blow up.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in this book.
Yeah.
He had to have a lot of fun thinking of different ways to make a body be destroyed magically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Holy
yeah. He really thought outside of the box with some of them.
Took the inhibitions down and just said, yeah, I'm just going to destroy some people and have some fun.
Yeah. But also, if if anybody's still watching this who hasn't read the book, Jim has a great spoiler-free review on his channel that I really enjoyed watching, because it was like watching you go through like all the emotions and like the phases of reading it start to finish. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. And then if they want to hear more about it, we also have a spoiler-free review on our channel as well.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. Appreciate it. Yeah. It's definitely one where, as you say, I had different feelings as I went through the book. And, I go into any fantasy book ready to enjoy it. I'm an optimist. I love fantasy fiction, and I love grimdark things that are more adult, gritty. That's not going to offend me. I don't have a problem like that.
Yeah.
This one, it was pushing a few of my buttons at first.
Sure.
And it's, I'd say this book has 3 primary characters. And I think you'd agree with me on this. We've got Aaron, we've got Kellowan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these the way you do. And we've got Corin. Okay. And it's really Aaron and Kellowan. But Corin is definitely there and plays a role that's pretty significant, especially being the non-magic user in the story and how his journey happens, which I think is important for us as a reader, because I don't use magic. Do you use magic? You're not a magic user, right?
Not on Fridays, no.
So Corin is the one, theoretically we could connect with more.
Yeah.
Except, ew. He's such a rogue, such a dirtbag in some ways at the beginning, especially. And that was my struggle when I picked this book first on.
Yeah, I was surprised when you I had seen a couple tweets of yours and I was like, what is he talking about? And then I messaged you privately and I'm like, I don't remember what you're talking about. And you shared a couple passages with me. And I was like, oh man, like I really don't remember that. I don't think that it bothered me as much because I think that I'm used to reading pretty like dirty fantasy, like just pretty like just like characters being like super nasty. And so I don't think it like I don't really think it like shocked me or anything in the same way. But also, we kind of talked about it extensively. And I think my view on it was that like just the fact that I didn't even remember that happening speaks so highly to what else happened in the book, because that was like such a small like fraction of it for me. Matter of fact, like his whole like character arc was such a small fraction of it for me. So I think it was just one of those things that I maybe didn't particularly notice just because there were other parts of the book that I was more focused on maybe.
And see, I've gone on to recommend this book to people on our channel,
Yeah,
but with the
definitely comes with a
warning.
disclaimer. Yeah.
Yeah, because this was something that, oh man, I hate using this word, but something that triggered me. Like, I'm not comfortable with this. This is not good. I almost DNF'd because of just this.
Yeah.
But I pushed past it, and I'm glad I did. And that's what I
Yeah.
let people know. This is going to happen. Know about it, but know that the author is doing something. And again, to clarify, what pushed me over the edge with Corin was there's one particular scene. He's hanging out in a tavern. He's in the common room. He's thinking about doing the nasty with yet another woman, like he does. And he's thinking about how much he prefers to do them from behind, so he doesn't even have to see their face, because it's easier to forget them then. He
Right.
doesn't want to know their names. They're just objects of pleasure. And I'm like, ick.
Yeah.
Ick. This is being built up as one of the primary characters at that point. That's what it felt like. And I'm like, no, I
Right.
don't like this. But it's establishing Corin as a certain caliber of character so that he can take him somewhere else, which he brilliantly does by introducing a young boy into the story.
Yes.
And Corin becomes the father figure for this young boy, though he would reject anybody saying such a thing about him. That's how he acts then. And I could say it's kind of a redemption story for him, but not really. It's just he's making a better self of himself. He's
Right.
having to live out that deep down, he's got a moral base.
Yeah.
He has some better qualities. He just likes to pretend those don't exist much of the time.
Yeah.
When push comes to shove, those come through true. And that's part of Riley's writing talent, that he was able to do that with this character.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Quick question. Have you read his other book, The Monsters We Feed?
I have not. I've heard lots of people love that book.
Yeah.
So I should? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that it would be everything you loved about We Break Immortals in like a condensed, like shorter story.
Now, refresh my memory. It's from the same world, but it's not a connection with this story directly, right?
Yeah, I think it takes place maybe like 30 years before We Break Immortals. It's like a prequel kind of.
Okay.
And it takes place in the same kind of area-ish. But yeah, you like everything that you enjoyed about We Break Immortals is in that book, just in a different context and in a shorter version. So yeah, I think you would love it without a doubt. You could probably
my TBR. It's not even on there yet. It's just there's so many books to remember.
Yeah, I think you could like knock it out in a weekend. It's pretty short.
Is it more of a novella?
Yeah, it's a novella. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. So. See, I didn't even think to ask. Are you drinking anything today?
Oh, yes. I'm drinking a very refined Jeremiah Johnson hazy IPA.
Hey,
Jeremiah Johnson
IPA, man. No, that's not beer. Come on.
I don't typically like a whole lot of IPAs, but recently I've been trying. It seems like these hazy IPAs are becoming more of a new trend.
Okay.
And I like them quite a bit. And Jeremiah Johnson is kind of a local brewing company to me. And they have a lot of cool stuff over there.
My daughter is a fan of IPAs, but I'm not. You know the history of IPAs, right?
Not really. I really don't know much about beer. I'm
Mm.
more of like a wine and whiskey kind of guy.
See, I like that about you, but
Yeah.
since you brought up IPA, I mean, the reason IPA was created was so that beer would last over long sea voyages back in
Mm,
1600s, 1700s, where it would go bad. And so they did stuff to it so that it would last longer.
mm.
That's not necessarily that they made it better. They just did stuff to it, and that's where the IPA comes from. And yeah,
Okay.
some people still like the taste of it. So there you go. Not my thing.
Yeah, the only reason that I've kind of been drinking them lately is because I've noticed that they have more alcohol in them than a lot of other, stuff that I used to drink, like Blue Moons and stuff. And so I kind of completely gave up on Blue Moons because I was like, I don't get anything out of this. Like, I don't know.
Wow, that says you should be sticking to the wine then, though, Spencer. All
I
the wine's
know,
got more than the beer. Come on.
I know,
Or
but
just go with your cocktails. I've got a dirty vodka martini today. There's a lot more
nice.
alcohol in this. So, I mean,
Nice.
vodka. Hey.
Right, can't go wrong.
So there's a lot of things about this book that we can talk to. One of
And we're
the
in full spoilers, right?
absolutely full
Okay,
spoilers, and
just want to
one
make
of the
sure.
things that I most appreciate about this story is, oddly enough, not the plot, not the characters, even though those
Mm.
are fine, those are good stuff. It's the magic. The
Yes,
magic
dude.
system's amazing in this story.
Oh
So
man.
creative. Wow.
Yeah, what so yeah, what how for first of all, I'll ask, how long did it take you to kind of understand the mechanics of it? Was it like readily, easily able to were you able to like identify what it was doing right off the bat, or did it
I was
take a
it.
few
Yeah, no, the
chapters?
way he describes it, I caught on pretty quick.
Yeah.
It made sense.
Yeah. I kind of pictured it almost as like a 3D rendering program, like almost like a game design kind of thing, where like in your head, or like there's like a spirit realm that you can pull all of these almost like identifiers or like qualifiers, like these different aspects, like size, shape, speed,
Wait,
temperature, weight, friction, stuff like that.
all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just love the idea of, rather than thinking, oh, I need to cast like a fireball or like make everything ice over or push or pull or whatever, it was kind of these like qualifiers or adjectives or different things that you all kind of mix into the magical pot, and it creates a spell with various qualities that you have
Yep.
specifically rendered. And I just love that idea so much, because you never really
Yes.
get anything that specific in fantasy. Usually, even some of the hard magic systems are pretty vague as to how it works.
Yeah. And
Um,
something that this shares a similarity with is there's a number of different fantasy stories where there's some sort of source they're
mm,
drawing from for
the
their
source, yeah,
magic. And that's true here. They're tapping into, I think, the light is what they reference it as almost
something
here.
like that, yeah.
But they draw off various different, I forget the word, threads, renders, they're
Renders,
pulling
yeah.
different elements off of it in order to do different things, like you said, to manipulate weight, to make objects, physical objects that they can push,
Yeah.
uh, to impact friction, and creatively thinking how they could use these things. But then those that are in the job of trying to stop these magic users are ones who also can tap into this in a
Hmm.
different sort of way. This was
Right.
fascinating to me, where they will go, and before the magic user knows they're about to spring their trap, they've got some people who will go and grab all
Hmm.
of these various renders,
Qualifiers, yeah.
qualifiers, so that only one can use them at a time.
Hmm.
So if they've already grabbed them, when this magic user goes to grab the stuff, nothing's accessible.
Right. Yeah,
Fascinating.
and I love the idea of the magic leaves behind a trace
A
that the
residue.
the residue, yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, I forget what his title is called.
He's a render tracer.
Render tracer. Okay, yeah. So it's something that the render tracers can go through and like catch in a little file and look at it and be like, okay, I know his exact pattern of
They are the
magic.
CSI of this magic
Yes.
world. It's excellent.
Oh, it was so cool. I
He even
loved.
has tools. What was that? An Osatrix or something like that. That
Oh yeah.
special glass where you could change out the lenses to see the
Oh, the
different.
monocle.
Yeah,
The what is that called? Oh my
it
god.
it starts with an O. I've got a few things open here. Can I find the name of that again? I'm not gonna find it real quick. Like an
Yeah, I
Osatrix, Osatrexic, something like that. But
there was something like that, but there was definitely the I want to say it was either something monocle or another word for monocle, but it was so cool because he could. I don't think I ever fully understood what all of the different filters did, because there's so many of them and it's hard to keep track. But I love the idea that he can like flip through these different
yep.
things and see different aspects of the magical realm, and they all have even like the different monocles have all of their own qualifiers to it so that you can see
Ah,
each aspect of a
the
spell that was
Jekker
cast.
monocle. That's what
Jekker
you're looking
monocle.
for.
Thank
Jekker
you.
monocle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's it. Different residuals are seen through different filters.
Yeah.
But it's not like anybody can use it. He's trained. He had to
Hmm.
understand how to use it. I mean, technically anybody could use it, but they wouldn't know what they were looking at.
Yeah.
Aaron is not magical. He doesn't have access to the magic type stuff to do this. This is just science, which is great. What a
Yeah.
blend. We've got the magic users and we've got the police.
Right.
In essence, the science part of it
And
coming together.
what's funny too is that the tracers, like, they use magic users on their team to
They
pull
do.
the stuff from the cloud or whatever. Like it,
The ones who
they
won't be burned at the stake.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Work for the
And
popo or you're in trouble.
right, exactly. And I think that's so interesting that I mean, because it's like the same as in real life, right? Like police have informants
Right.
and all sorts of stuff and
But then we
undercover
twist it
cops.
around. He adds in this other element.
Mm,
The group that Kellowin is with. This group, they're all magic users out to stop bad magic users. But they
right,
themselves are on the lam. They're
right,
not working for the fuzz. They
right.
are just rogue magic users as well, but committed to only using magic for good.
Yeah.
And that whole group, there was a totally different vibe. That was interesting. And Kellowin herself,
Oh man.
wow, what a messed up backstory. What a complex character.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kellowin was fantastic. I loved reading about her right from the start, and um, I think that your opinion of her, or at least my opinion of her, changed throughout the entire
oh,
book.
sure.
At first,
Yeah.
I was like, God, just chill out, just calm down. Like, man, you're being so like just like kind of bitchy, and I'm like, oh my God.
She
And
has no
so
patience. She's very
yeah.
judgmental. Yeah, all this.
Yeah, and like at times, I don't want to say that she was ever like hard to read because I always enjoyed reading her chapters, but at the same time, I was like, man, she has got to like have some sort of character arc here. And
And
I
then there's
love,
the scene where they just have to help her release. Okay, this was a little weird, where her husband has the other two come in to basically do sex things with her so that she will
oh yeah,
relax a little better. I'm like,
right.
okay, you guys are a cult. I see
Yeah,
that now. All
yeah,
right.
yeah. They were a little culty, weren't they? They were like,
Yeah, there is a religious aspect to this organization, no
for
doubt.
sure. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I totally forgot about that, but
You forget all the Ucky stuff, Spencer. I'm
I
seeing
know.
that now. All
I know.
right.
Well, it's also been like a long time. It's been like over a year since I've read this book. Um,
Oh goodness.
but yeah, I enjoyed her character arc so much, especially when I mean, do we want to talk about like her relationship with Aaron?
Heck yeah. Do it.
Dude, that was so great. That was one of
Can
my
we say
favorite.
love hate?
Yeah, like at least at first. And man, I just I loved how all of that transpired. Like her showing up and being like, I hate you, I'm gonna kill you, and like
Yep.
trapping him in a cylinder. And then I forget how they get out of that, but he basically kind of like reverses everything on her to where she's like unconscious on the back of his horse,
Mm-hmm.
and they're
Mm-hmm.
like riding through all the places they're going, and he keeps trying to convince her that he's
Yep.
not the one that
I'm
she's
not the bad
hunting.
guy. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not working for the bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I typically don't really like miscommunication tropes in fantasy, but I feel like
That's
this
why
one,
you don't like the Wheel of Time, by the way.
I mean, I do like the Wheel of Time. I just didn't like the Shadow Rising. Um, but yeah, and so you know, I typically don't like miscommunication tropes, but I really liked how her and Aaron's relationship was handled at the beginning, where they are completely missing the point when they
Yeah.
talk to each other. He thinks that she's talking about one thing, she thinks that he's talking about another thing, and they cannot convince each other of the opposite. And to be honest, I kind of forget like how it all shakes out, like how they finally resolve that. But I remember it being a really great moment where it was like, yes, finally they get it. And then they start becoming friends, and then they start like becoming really good friends. And I just loved where she, well, I don't want to say I loved where she ended up at the end of the book, but I loved who she became
Yeah.
before her end came. Like, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
I loved
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing. So
The book has a couple of factors that really do tie it to grimdark for me.
okay,
One is that all of these characters are very flawed characters. We have no pure white heroic character.
sure.
Doesn't exist in this book.
Well,
Everybody's got
Ariana,
flaws. What?
Ariana, maybe she could be considered a.
Okay, a little closer. Yeah. She did, though, decide she knew better than her elders and run off with the guy she shouldn't have. You know, but
Yeah.
you're right. We're close there. We're close there. But she's like an exception then.
Sure.
And even her father knew things that he'd hidden from her. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
there were truths she's naive about.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. Um but that, and then the fact that there are multiple events in the story where things go horribly wrong
Yeah.
and nobody is safe. You know, that's a
Right.
very grim dark trait.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
think this is going to work out, and then, oh, the wrong guy shows up, and whoo, everything goes horribly bad. And oh, now that person's dead. Whoa, I didn't see that coming. I
Yeah.
mean, even you think of the ending where they have the final, final confrontation with the big bad. And when Kellowan's husband goes out, I mean, the way he went out was horrific.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, he died. I thought he was
Wasn't
gonna
he?
make it. Yeah.
Wasn't he like turned inside out or something? What
No, he
happened?
was smushed into
Oh, that's
absolute
right. Oh my
nothingness.
god.
Ugh,
Dude, that was awful.
terrible way to
I
go.
remember, oh my gosh, I remember reading that and just being like, holy crap, like
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Oh man. Cuz like with the magic system, you know it can happen because Kellyanne almost did it to Aaron when she had the
Mm-hmm.
cylinder,
Mm-hmm.
but seeing it is a whole nother thing. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god.
So that's all very grimdark. That kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's fair. And I think, yeah, I guess you could classify it as it. I think for me, grimdark, like a staple of it being grimdark is that the world itself is completely hopeless. Like everybody is like destitute, and there is, and I mean, I guess that's kind of true with the with like the immortal like dark wizard on the rise. You know, that could be considered like the world being hopeless, but
Well, and
I
look at the things that Aaron thinks he can count on.
right. Yeah.
The king that he serves, who's not
Yeah.
really so noble as you think he
Oh,
is. I
that
mean,
was such a
these are
good
traits
twist.
of Grimdark where everything
Yeah,
starts
that's
to
true.
crumble around him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then let's throw in the fact that he's addicted to cocaine. I mean, they call it something
Oh
different, but
man.
it's cocaine, man.
Yeah, so it's more like it's supposed to be more like heroin. I man, I love this
Did,
so much. Like I talked to Thomas Howard Riley was on the channel a while back, and we talked
okay.
about this at length. And I appreciated this so much. I've talked very openly on our channel that I've had some addiction issues in the past when I was younger, specifically with opiates. And I think that there's so many fantasy series that try to do the addiction thing, and it's just not done well a lot of the times.
Mhm.
A lot of the times I'm reading it and I'm like, I can appreciate the effort, but that's not like how that would happen or whatever. But in this book, literally everything to do with Malagane was so perfect. I'm like, man, he really did his research. Like, this is how an addict would feel in this situation when he gets his Malagane taken away by the guards and he gets thrown in jail and he's like going through these withdrawals. I'm like,
Mhm.
man, he captured the idea of what it's like to withdraw from something very, very well. And so I was just like, I was really appreciative that he did it really well, and I was really, really impressed with it. So, yeah,
I was wondering if that was one of the things that you did particularly appreciate of the story. That
yeah,
because they seem to really capture that well. You know, there's a few different stories with things along the same lines. You know, mental illness comes to mind too. Other
yeah,
stories where they handle mental illness really badly, and then a
yeah,
few that, yes,
yeah,
that's accurate. You know, and it stands out as different. So
yeah,
for addiction, this one captures that appropriately, and I sensed
yeah,
it. I have
yeah,
no personal experience,
sure.
you know, with that, but as a reader, I'm like, this felt genuine. This felt authentic.
Yeah, it was like surprisingly so. I was, when I first saw that, I think it's in one of the first chapters where Aaron is like smoking his Malagane. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But in the back of my head, I was like, it probably won't be like, it'll probably just be like in this chapter and then like never mentioned again. And I loved, I mean, I didn't love it for Aaron, but I loved the idea that Thomas had here where it's like, no, this is going to be a constant thing throughout the entire story. And
Hmm.
even by the end of the story, it's not going to be this thing where it's like, he got clean at the end. Like, it's going to be this thing where someone he loved dies and he's going to go even harder into it. And that's so true to life. And it's so, it just captures just like what that feels like
Yeah.
so perfectly. And it's not a great thing. I'm not like um what am I trying to say? I'm not like what's the word I'm looking
An
for?
apologist for drug use.
Yes, exactly. Nothing like that. I'm just really surprised by a book that actually did it well. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
this is how I felt when I was an addict or whatever. And so
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
I just I really appreciated that at the end it wasn't this thing where he's like, I beat the dark wizard and now I'm clean from the drug I'm addicted
Again,
to. It's like,
grimdark, Spencer. This is
yeah,
grimdark. You know,
yeah,
everything isn't rosy and wonderful
right.
now. No,
Because,
no, we're
you know,
still. Oof.
yeah, because like in real life, it takes several attempts to get
Yeah.
clean from drugs usually. And so I like the idea that at the end it wasn't just this everything's solved kind of
Right.
thing. So, anyways,
So Do you have any word? I mean, there's a prequel you mentioned that I have to add
Yes.
to my TBR, but when's the next book advancing the story going to come out?
That's a good
Any
question.
word?
I was just thinking about that today. I was going to reach out to Thomas and ask. I know that he's working on it. I know that he's well into it. But I think We Break Immortals took like several years to write.
Well,
And
it got the recognition on my channel for being the single longest book I read this year. It's not a short book.
it is a
It's
long book.
over 1,000 pages in hardcover. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
And he said that the second book is even longer. And
Just don't make the Night Angel Nemesis mistake, please.
yeah.
Be good longer, not
Yeah.
bloated longer.
Yeah, and I've recently seen some updates on his Twitter where he was saying that he like it was getting so long that he had to like go in and like cut a bunch of stuff out. And I keep telling him, I'm like, dude, cut stuff out. Like that's cool. Just make a really nice, like tight story. Because as much as I would love to read just a million pages of this world, I'm like, I would so appreciate just like a really tight, good story. So hopefully he's taken the Reaper's scythe to the
There you go.
some of the extra stuff.
Now, you were the one that wanted me to read this book.
Yes.
So, are there any other aspects of the book that you were hoping I would really key into, or things that you just want to know? What did I think about that we haven't talked about?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about the magic system. That was one that I knew you would love. And Kellywyn, I thought that she was going to be like a favorite character of yours for sure. We talked about the Malagane, which was another big highlight of the series that he did, or of the book that he did really well. The other thing, man, this is such a difficult one because it's something that I really care about in fantasy, but it's something that you don't care about as much. And this is the relationship between Aaron and Ariana. What did you think this was done well? Did this make you feel anything in your cold heart? Or
I'll admit I was somewhat ambivalent. Yeah, it
oh,
wasn't something
okay.
that I was like, "Oh, this makes the story so much better." It almost felt a little forced, just a
Oh,
little.
interesting.
Yeah,
I,
so
I
I'm like, he needed to insert this somehow, and I'm like,
okay.
So, the sacrifice that takes place, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, it served its purpose. I wasn't
Right.
torn emotionally. No, no.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I have such a complete opposite
You're
reaction to
cold
that.
with a cold, dark heart, clear.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like I was just thinking about this before we hopped on, actually, because I was like, I feel like that relationship happened really naturally, where it wasn't this thing where, sometimes in fantasy you see either the girl who likes the guy, but he doesn't like her back, or the guy that likes the girl, but she doesn't like him back. And right from the beginning, it was kind of this like mutual interest. There
Man,
was a little bit of back and
you
forth and
think
whatnot.
so? Because I'm
I
like, he
maybe
was
I
the
miss
hot young adventurer that shows up and she's instantly interested because this is the forbidden fruit and she could
right.
run off with.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a trope. And
that's fair.
he
Yeah.
saw her and it's like, dang, chicka chicka boom boom, she's hot. Was
Yeah.
right off the bat, and he's trying to
Yeah.
avert his eyes because he doesn't want to
That's
get in
true.
trouble. I'm
Yeah.
like, that was very tropey. So I'm interested. That's
Yeah.
interesting that you didn't feel that way.
I guess like maybe it's tropey, but I feel like in a lot of other fantasy, there's usually this struggle, like will they, won't they kind of thing. And I thought it was kind of refreshing, like right from the beginning, to have them both be like
They
mutually
will.
interested in each other. And it's like, okay, cool. This is something that's gonna happen. And then you just instead of playing this guessing game for the whole book, you get to see the relationship actually kind of blossom in front of you. And one of my favorite moments is where they're going through the woods, and I can't remember specifics, but him and Ariana kind of step off to the side and they're like looking at this map and they're talking about like all the different places that they could go that they've never seen.
Sure.
And
Yep.
just like those little like quiet moments, I thought those were written really well.
I did appreciate there was a particular moment where she basically said to him, she didn't use his words, but grow up.
Yeah.
That she was clearly the more mature of the two of them as
Yes.
they approached the relationship that's
Yeah.
developing. And
Yeah.
that was actually true to life too, because that's usually true.
Yeah.
The
Usually,
women are usually a little more mature than the guys. Sorry,
yeah.
it's the way it is.
Yeah. And they usually get the guy to kind of, you know, put on his boots and get to work, so to speak, like kind of grow up a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very true. But yeah, and then when I don't know, for me, when she died, I was devastated. Like I immediately sent a message to Thomas, and I was like, how could you do this? Like, oh my God.
And he was like, I
Um,
didn't. It's the way it wrote itself, right? He said
yeah,
something like that.
it's just how
Authors
the
love to
story
cop
played
out
out.
like that. It's
Yeah.
just the way it happened.
He's like, I didn't want to. He's like, I felt so
Yeah,
bad about
see?
it. And I'm like, bull crap.
You
But
suck right now. Yeah.
oh man, it killed me. Like that was devastating. And so yeah, but I loved the way, you know, unfortunately, I don't know where I fall on this really. People really hate the I think they call it the fridge trope or the refrigerator trope where
Fridge. Yeah,
yeah,
fridging. But
fridging.
no,
Okay.
that's she
But
does
I
not
don't think
fall into that category. Not at
okay,
all.
that's what I feared. But I loved how you know, and speaking of grimdark, like this goes to one of your grimdark side, is that where he ends up at the end of the book, even though he like saved the day, he is not in a good place
Oh no,
at
he's screwed
all.
up big time.
Yeah. And so I think it's interesting how I don't know, I'm just so interested to see the effects of that in the next book, because I think we've seen it happen to characters in other books, and the consequences aren't like, there may be like minor, like temporary consequences, but I get
Mhm.
the feeling from this death that there are going to be serious consequences for Aaron, just in his like kind of like processing and mental
Yeah.
health and all that. So yeah,
Definitely interested to see where it goes.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? What was something that really kind of stuck out to you that maybe I wouldn't have considered?
Man, I don't know that there's anything else really than what we've
Anything
talked
specific?
about. Aaron's journey and where he comes to at the end uh, just really worked for me.
Yeah,
I really appreciated, he has this perspective on the world is this way. His mentor, who he idolized, and that's taken away from him. He gets the fact that the world is not what I thought it was. It
yeah,
is just what I find now. And I
right.
just need to deal with that.
Yeah,
And I need to move forward.
yeah,
And that's the lesson he learns here. He can't just build his life upon presuppositions. He has to
yeah.
build it on the facts that he finds. And he can't whine that things aren't the way he wanted them to be. He
Hmm.
can't pine for how he wishes things would become. He needs to deal with reality and move
Yeah,
forward and not let it destroy him. And
yeah.
he embraces that in the end. It's hard, but he gets there. And I enjoyed that journey. So, I mean, that's the best part of the story for me.
Man, you are gonna love the monsters we feed. You're gonna love it so much. Everything you just
Good.
said right there. Yeah, I feel like he goes from kind of this spoiled, very like
Entitled.
yeah, entitled, like up on his soapbox kind of person,
Hmm.
and gets a dose of reality. And I think
Oh, man,
that's
that
another
broken
thing.
down so hard.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's another thing that Ariana and everybody else kind of helped him with, was and especially Kellywin, starting to see other people's point of views and get out of his own POV, and kind of like get into other people's heads, and realizes that the world is bigger than the 4 feet around him, you know?
In a twisted sort of way, our big bad helped him get there too. I forget his name.
Ooh, that is a great question that I
What
don't
is
know the answer
I,
to.
I can't remember the guy's name,
Yeah,
but
it was something
he
cool like Kincaid or something like that. I forget.
that might be it, but he has this ability to speak to people and just twist them into his way, and it doesn't work on Aaron.
Yeah,
Aaron just, nope, you're not swaying me. But yet he sways Aaron. The things he says does shift the way Aaron looks at things. And so he does contribute to Aaron's growth. Not the way he wanted it to happen,
right.
but still that this whole melting pot of events
Yeah,
changes Aaron for the better.
what did you think of? I think might actually be something I specifically mentioned in that episode we did. Uh, I assumed that you would really like the prophecy stuff because I'll just ask, what did you think of that, the prophecy in this book?
Goodness, what did I think of the prophecies? I mean, they were the prophecies. They're the things
Okay.
that people know about that guide you towards what's going to happen and yet don't necessarily control you. Is what they're discovering as they go.
Yeah, I think I really appreciated them because I normally don't like prophecy in fantasy books. Anytime there's a prophecy, I'm like, okay. But like with Wheel of Time probably being an exception because I feel like the reason I thought you would like the prophecy in this book is because I felt like it was really kind of comparable to Wheel of Time, where it's not super straightforward. Like you almost have to like decode it a little bit to really understand what it's trying to tell you. And the prophecy, the way you understand it may not actually be the way that it plays out. And if you
Right.
talk to many different cultures and different people, they all have very different ideas on what the prophecy means. And so that was something I really liked about this book, being someone who's not into prophecy usually in fantasy.
That really sounds a lot like astrology and fortune cookies.
Yeah.
You can read into what it says, whatever you want it to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved that Aaron the whole time, like he was like, the prophecy's not real. Like he's not like being, the main character. He's not like, oh, I'm following the prophecy and like becoming the hero that I'm destined to be. He's like, the prophecy's not real. Shut up. And the whole time he's like, every now and then he'll get a little bit more convinced and he'll be like, was this the prophecy or is this just like happy coincidence or what? And I love him like struggling with that. And by the end of the book, unless I'm forgetting something major, I think by the end of the book, you're still not entirely convinced like
He
what
just did what
exactly
he
the
had to
prophecy.
do,
Yeah.
and if it kind of aligns, okay, it kind of aligns, but it didn't control anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. I also wanted to ask you, what did you think of? I mean, this is going to sound like a super vague question, and I can clarify it a little bit more. But I'm curious what you thought of the different POVs, like how different they all were from each other. Because I think Kellywyn's POVs were more like character focused. Like she was focused on like her husbands and her friends and protecting them. And you
Okay.
really get that vibe through her inner monologue. And then when you get to Aaron's chapters, he's very focused on architecture. And like every time he's walking somewhere, he's looking at the houses and kind of paying attention on like, oh, this is from this era of architecture and knows all the history and stuff. And then you get into Corin's and his are just like constant like selfish thoughts of just like debauchery. And
Oh, I know.
I
I know.
I feel like a lot of I feel like a lot of fantasy books, you get into someone else's POV and it's clearly in that character's voice, but it's just a continuation of the story in their voice. And I feel like this one, there was a lot of like significant differences from POV to POV. Like I feel like I always knew whose head I was in.
I can't say that I really cognitively paid attention to that.
Sure.
So that's something where I'll, give you some credit that you catch such things in the way you read. But I can see it as you're saying it. And yeah, that's good story writing then. For
Yeah.
me, it was invisible in the background.
Sure.
But yes, that's true to the different ways that the story was told through different perspectives, and it enriched the story.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's the best kind of writing, right? When you're not even realizing
That's right.
that it's
You don't
happening.
know you don't see how the author's manipulating you. You're
Right.
just glad he is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, a great story. Thank you for encouraging me to read it sooner than I'd planned. You were right. It was worthy.
I'm
Uh,
so glad.
I have an episode, and it'll be out by the time people see this, where I give my annual awards for the books that I read, and this one did
Nice.
win the Behemoth Award, simply
Okay.
being the longest freaking book I read all year. But I
Nice.
also talk very fondly of it in a number of episodes now. So you were right. It's a great fantasy book, and I do encourage people to check it out.
Yeah.
And now I've got another one to check out, that prequel that you told me about. So
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Man, you're gonna love the prequel. I can't say that I liked it more than We Break Immortals, because We Break Immortals was my favorite book of, I think, 2022. That was my number
Okay.
one. And The Monsters We Feed, oh my god, I totally forgot to like put it in my top 5 this year. It would have been in my top 5. It would have been
Okay.
like number 3 or something.
All right.
Yeah, I
Well,
had such a
this
good
made
time
my
with it.
top 10 this year because this is when I
Oh,
read
good.
it. But it's in
Nice.
there.
Nice.
That
Yeah.
episode's already out, so people are already loving it.
Awesome.
By the way, I'm admiring the picture in the background again. Kelly Wynn's
Yeah.
gloves.
Oh, I know. That's such a good
plays
plot
such a
point.
prominent role in her character and the action of the story.
Yes.
So nicely
Man,
done.
that was so good. That was
Yeah.
so good. Also, I hope that he eventually turns these into audiobooks, because you know me, I have a really hard time reading physically just because I don't have the time for it. Or like, I should say, I probably do.
You don't have the patience for it, is what you want. You want, give it to me in my ears. Come on.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's like a patience thing. I think there's just like other things that I want to do rather than read. And so I'd love to like multitask and do all of those things at the same time.
Like that sounded like heresy. Other things you want to do than read.
But I can read and play video games at the same time.
Oh man, there's no way I could do that. Seriously?
No?
You can focus on video games while listening to an audiobook?
Yeah, just like an
No
audiobook in my
way!
ear and playing a video game. Yeah.
I have to be paying attention too much to a video game. I can do it while I'm doing chores. I can get exercise. I can drive, but while playing a video game, no freaking way. Wow.
Oh yeah, I do it every night.
Mind blowing. This explains how you play so many video games.
Oh yeah,
I can't do those two things at the same time.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that should speak to how highly I love this book, is because I literally came home every single day after work, didn't even turn on my computer, and went straight to my Kindle and opened it up because I just couldn't get enough of this book.
That is high praise. Yep.
But it's hard to like justify the time to reread it. And I would definitely reread it. But I'm like, man, I just want there to be an audiobook so bad. And I want there to be an audiobook of The Monsters We Feed as well. So
it's hard to reread anything these days because there's so many good books waiting
so much
out there
to do.
us.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. But what a fantastic book. I love We Break Immortals. It's got such a special place in my heart. So I'm really, really glad you read it. Like, sincerely, thank you for reading it, because
my pleasure, literally. Thomas Howard Riley, you'll probably check out this episode. I know you.
Yeah. Hi, Thomas.
Thank you so much for writing this book. And we're eager for the next one.
Absolutely.
Keep it up, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me run my outro here. We'll just throw this up on the side to remind people of all the ways that they can go ahead and get in touch with us. Again, like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. We have a Discord server. Spencer, you have a Discord server too.
Yeah.
You're there like once every week or so, right?
Like every 2 months. Yeah.
I think I'm on your server more than you are.
Yeah, you're probably
that's okay. It's there. Ours is a little more active. We the
Yeah.
people, especially sharing the books they're reading,
Yeah.
which is great. You find other things to read. So feel free to join us there and all our social medias and Patreon and all that. So, there it is. We got it out there. It's good to share. Thanks for watching, everyone. And Spencer, thanks for being with us again. People, don't forget to check out the Fantasy Files. You won't regret it. All right, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye, Hank.